Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Lord of the Rings adventure card game. So we've got quest 4 of the third and final campaign. The last quest was a little bit more difficult, but we kind of breezed through it just by playing quick through the first couple of areas and just generally assuming I was going to have to reset progress. So I guess that sort of worked. But I am a little bit afraid here that now that we're getting to quest 4, we might have some real struggle. But we can only hit forward and see.
Your fellowship has journeyed north for several days. The air growing cooler with each morning. Winter would not come for some time, but the morning dew has turned to frost as you awake the third day and start the breakfast fire. On the fourth day, you turn slightly east, away from the ancient road, so that you might look down upon from the nearby hill before you enter. The rolling hills are covered with grass, not yet yellow by the coming of autumn. You creep carefully to a vantage point, still far off from the ruin, but already see the many columns of smoke rising from it. For Nostorrain is once again inhabited, but by whom or what you do not know. More smoke rises from the fires just outside the city. More camps set up at the approaches. You discuss who might be claiming Dead Man's Dyke when a voice answers from behind you.
Hillmen.
You turn to face a woman who appeared soundlessly, holding a bow pointed directly at you.
Okay, interesting setup. I don't know why you would use a big word like fellowship, other than the fact that Fellowship of the Ring is either a chapter or one of the books of Lord of the Rings. I really do have this feeling like there was 3 Lord of the Rings books that at some point got merged into one book just called The Lord of the Ring, and at some point then got expanded or stretched out into 3 movies, and then The Hobbit, which was a much shorter book to my understanding if I'm recalling correctly, also got stretched out to 3 movies where there just wasn't enough story there. But yeah, generally when I think of the phrase fellowship, it's either a group of people sitting down, eating together, or a group of people coming together to worship something, or practice some kind of religion, which noticeably there is kind of none of that, even though there's definitely been a lot of allegories and interpretations to say that the Lord of the Rings series was in part supposed to be a Christian allegory, although I don't know if it really makes the most sense for it to be a Christian allegory. They said basically the same thing about the Narnia series, and in the early couple of books that were written, I don't feel like it really was supposed to be a Christian allegory. By the time you get to the final book, though, he definitely seemed to have pushed hard into that. And ironically, even though it went heavy into that, a lot of Christians still didn't like the fantasy elements of the Narnia series, and probably in the same way did not like the Lord of the Rings series. In fact, I don't have to say probably, I know they didn't. Yeah, if you do a Christian allegory that in any way feels fresh or new or different from the Bible, it inevitably becomes competition to the Bible for the extremely religious who would want their kids to only read and engage with the Bible and nothing else. Like, literally nothing else if they could get away with it. Anyways.
The woman reveals herself as a ranger of the north, one of the Dunedain who patrol these hills.
But she has no name.
That you're of the free folk, she lowers her bow, and her face goes from an iron glare to a warm smile.
Mylavanen.
She greets
she does have a name.
Which means
You are well met.
Nope, that's not a name.
I am Beravor.
Nope, she does have a name.
Mysterious people, but they defend the land good folk who dwell there. You accept her as a friend to your cause, exchanging greetings. She explains that the hillmen have been gathering at Fornost for some weeks, drawn by an unknown compulsion.
I know not why they come, but it is an ill omen indeed.
She's tracked them, trying to find information.
But the hillmen are too cautious, and I have not been successful so far.
With your arrival, verify that together we might have accosted the Hillmen and learn their scheme. You approach one of their camps at the edge of the city.
And see, as I got to talking in the last section, I totally skipped past the point where there was a sentence describing what happened on the third day and basically said nothing, and then there was another sentence that described what happened on the fourth day. This writing doesn't come off as particularly good or descriptive. The bar is set to the maximum as far as quality of writing that you would need. You would need just like paragraphs and paragraphs of descriptions, or you would have to show and not tell quite a bit and just have more visuals. I have to assume, since there are so few female characters, that this is actually the female bad guy, and that's going to be the big twist, which I guess for these stories is somewhat of a twist. Like Lord of the Rings tends not to really have somebody turn out to be a bad guy when they could be when they start off as a good guy. Of all the dwarves in Lord of the Rings and the Hobbits, it would make a lot of sense if, for a permanent twist, one of the dwarves or hobbits sided with Sauron of his own free will and not just through corruption or magic. Sam or somebody like that. Gollum is clearly evil. From pretty early into your introduction with him, you realize he's crazy and evil. It certainly would explain Sauron's success in a lot of places, to be able to magically create such a large army if there were village leaders, chieftains, sending people to their doom so they could be resurrected as orcs or something like that.
I must carry the burden.
Here we have once again a new playfield. It's just like every single sequence is another every single sequence, every area has a new playfield that has been lovingly designed. You could certainly do a cheaper effort on this, even if all of this is just pre-bought like Unity assets or Unreal Engine assets. So we need to defeat 6 of these Rudar, or defeat every enemy, I assume. Rudar is just a class of hillmen. I suppose they're supposed to be somewhat tribal, like Native American type characters, less advanced. One player draws 2 cards. Well, drawing cards might be helpful. I don't know how helpful it would be. The whole system of this game is just not done well enough to really need to look at all the fates. Most of the time I've not even bothered to check the threats. Right. So, first thing to do, I think, is to get rid of Sauron's ability to play things. Then put a block character on the field. And put this in block mode. And we'll put, I guess, this in block mode. We don't even lose if this character goes away. Forever must survive. Okay. So yeah, I guess I should have protected this character a little bit more. But I don't think I have to really do too much there. This will be a while before it makes sense to play that. These two ranged characters making things more difficult. I should have put unexpected courage on this character, shouldn't I? Alright, well, we'll kill this. And do this. We have 1, 2, 3 with guards, so we basically have to do this. And that will just clear this field and complete our task. Would have been nice to play Bilbo's cloak. But yeah, just move fast and move on to the next section so we learn what that is.
Aruwethel examines her work carefully. She puts in place the last piece of ancient artifact from the Southlands. The magic of the device, long since dormant, awakes and emits a soft light within. To fully restore the device, she thinks to herself she will need to apply her own limited skills as taught to her so long ago by the necromancer himself. Restore it, however, she will. Once it's complete, she will present the device to her master, so that he may use it to release an Angmar, and from there rule over these lands once more. She summons servants to take the device to the appointed place. There she will finish the ritual, restore its power, and return the spare and wished lands. My master. She thinks. Very soon.
So, there's apparently this ancient forgotten magic that requires some sort of artifacts of some sort to be implemented. So it's also both magic and mechanical. And in the world of Middle-earth, it seems like only a handful of people know how to do anything with magic, and that there was just this entire society far in the past that knew magic left and right. Of course, if there was far in the past a society that knew magic, that's interesting if you try to actually touch upon it more. I don't think the stories really do. It would be more relatable if it turned out that Middle-earth was actually Earth, just thousands of years in the future, and what people call magic was actually just technology. But that would be telling more of a sci-fi futuristic story than a fantasy story. And it doesn't change too much, it's just slightly more relatable as a concept. But we know the rules of technology, so if, particularly in a TV series or a movie, you saw they were collecting things that looked like circuit boards, and then, or capacitors, or just batteries, things like that, things that look somewhat relatable, then that would give some foreshadowing to the viewer that, oh, this is technology, and when all that technology is put together, then that would be a relatable reveal. Whereas visually, if I saw a big curtain with an eye on it, that doesn't mean anything to me. There's no rules that have been taught around magic. And so maybe that's what you would want to do in a story like this, is start with something that feels almost like a side story, where a child is being taught the rules of ancient magic, or a wizard is teaching some basic rules of ancient magic. And this eye, to me, just looks like the Eye of Sauron, but they're talking more about the Necromancer, which I don't know if that really is Sauron or not, or if the Necromancer has been replaced with Sauron or some other lord or master that they're not naming.
The hillmen, explains, are divided into many clans, and from there broken down into individual tribes. They are prone to fighting amongst each other, and will follow their leaders only so long as they can provide opportunities for loot and pillage, which they gain mostly by raiding each other. This lady who holds them in such awe must be powerful indeed to keep the hillmen from each other's throats.
If the hillmen are gathered, and the artifacts you've been chasing are indeed components of an ancient and powerful device,
how would we know that part?
Stop this lady of the South. The Witch King has been gone from these lands for centuries, but his evil power still causes fear amongst the hearts of all the North, and his mere name carries with it the terror of times past. To gain entry to Fornos, you follow Beryl along the city's broken walls until you reach one of its many gaps. Hillmen guard the opening, but you resolve to make your way inside the city ruins one way or another.
This feels like at least the second time we've had the story skip a step and have the protagonist of the story know something that they shouldn't really know, something that hasn't been explained to them, or maybe it was explained in that letter, but maybe not hit on the head enough or repeated enough. Particularly in TV and movies, you often have to say things 2 or 3 times for an audience to pay attention to it and remember it. I definitely am not remembering any point where the protagonist would have known an ancient and powerful device was being built from the artifacts. Okay, another fight. Defeat 7 of these guys, or defeat every enemy, or collapse the wall. Okay, we could probably collapse the wall. Endeavor must survive again. Trevor is not a hobbit. I need to heal this character very quickly. There. Yeah, in a lot of ways here I may have set myself up for potential failure just by not paying enough attention. Okay. So that. Heal that. This one can only heal a couple times because of her power being only 2. But I also don't want to could have activated some of this. This could give me 3 power. So now is a decent time to start that. Next turn we could do this and potentially win, although it may not really matter. Should I draw cards? Probably not.
I will go alone.
So yeah, I think we've just lost. Unless there was just some crazy reason why. For every hobbit. Interesting, they're actively not trying to kill this character. They seems like they could have done that at any point, and they chose not to. And this guy doesn't have ranged. Well, color me confused. We already have a Bilbo's cloak set up. Guess that makes the most sense. Do that. Can't attack that, so put that in defense mode. And I mean, I guess you could do something like that.
May I offer a song to ease your troubles?
And I guess you could do that. This is the first time I've ever felt like the game has possibly done anything at all to make it feel like they're even trying to give me a chance at winning. Okay. Okay. Summon something. Summon something. Drawing a couple cards. Maybe not a terrible thought either. But I do think I just want to kill this guy. So I can heal here. Then that's guard. And then put another thing in guard mode. And we'll just draw some cards. I think that works fairly well. we may just luck out. This next encounter may be very easy with the high amount of faith we have.
The brusque calls of Hillman grow louder as you draw nearer the center of the city. You climb the remains of a once great tower and look out over a square lined by broken statues and a long dried fountain. Gathered about are a multitude of hillmen who look upon a dais where a dark feminine form sways and chants in the black speech of old before a device that glows with greenish light. She calls one of the hillmen to stand before the device. It convulses in a sudden choking fit as an odorous vapor rises before him, clutches at his throat and looks to his fellows. They instinctively back away from the man, who sputters and then falls dead upon a stone.
Behold the power I bear,
shouts the woman to the crowd, a voice commanding their obedience.
With this we will retake the north!
So, reading this story, I guess Brever is just a lady ranger who just happened to show up, unless it's a case that Brever can split herself into two different forms, or that they're sisters. You could have that twist. Weirdly, there isn't really a lot of familiarity in the Lord of the Rings stories. Frodo and Bilbo are related, and I guess some of the elves and humans might be children or grandchildren of other characters in other stories, but you don't have any real husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, or any of that getting in the way of an adventure. Which, inherently, I kind of have the feeling, and maybe it's just because I'm a little bit more accustomed to childish stories like Harry Potter, which, let's face it, fantasy is really targeted towards teenagers more than anything, or preteens. But to me, it does kind of feel like adventures should be had with teenagers, kids, people who wouldn't be tied down by having children, husbands, wives, things like that. It's a very different story to say, I've left my family to potentially go fight in a war that might get me killed, versus I've gone on a grand adventure as a teenager and I don't expect anything bad will happen to me and I'll come back just fine. I do kind of like the maturity that Lord of the Rings has an air of, and that there probably is room for more stories that are set with adults doing adult things, but it doesn't happen very often. Even when you have that book series / sci-fi TV series, The Magicians, when they say that they're trying to do something like Harry Potter but in college with adults, it mostly boils down to being closer to a Game of Thrones story with just a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll in it, which Game of Thrones is also a great example of that, where it is extremely, extremely adult with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, to use an old phrase. I guess that is pretty old these days.
The plague returned!
Beravor exclaims in anguish, recalling the ancient curse that has devastated the north so many years ago. A calamity from which the land still not recovered.
We must stop this madness!
Thinking quickly, you realize that the tower upon which you would crush the square below if it were to collapse. By removing a stone here and shattering the stone there, you might bring it down. Though it will take both might and cunning together to do so. You must act without delay, and appear simply to attack in desperation, so that some of your fellowship might bring the tower down before the helmet suspect your plan and seek to undo it. Beravor calls out, leaping into the square below and dropping the hill before he can react. You and your companions join in, seeking to hold off and somehow collapse the tower, hoping against to stop the dark lady before her plan come to fruition.
So, yeah, there is a Dark Tower series by by, I believe, Stephen King. Or The Dark Tower is a book in a series by Stephen King. I think it's called like the Lone Gunman series or something like that. Access the tower for 3. War drums. Gives us stalwart. -2 to every enemy this turn. I feel like that by far is the best move to start with, so we can at least heal Brevor. We'll put self-preservation on her. Bilbo's cloak can't be played. We could draw more cards. So I think Frodo's intuition makes a lot of sense. Summoning random characters, not a bad move. And then, guess we'll see. Unexpected courage on this guy. So the main thing here is to attack, I guess, with this. And we'll restore some health here. Then 4 resolves that. 3 resolves that. That brings the tower to 6. One health, plus 1 health for... At the end, it restores 1 health. It just doesn't matter though, does it? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would get it down to 1 in 1 turn. Maybe not quite enough. So... Well, we could definitely play this here. And then, should we kill some people? I think there is probably just a real nice benefit here to just killing everything else. I'm actually running out of people that I can even put self-protection on. I just feel like I'm going to totally have this in the bag. Apparently I need to discard 4 cards, 2 of which I can pick pretty quickly. Get rid of that one. And I think we have more than enough artifacts. So. Yeah, I'd have a hard time imagining actually failing here now. Just seems like it's too easy to take out other characters. What's this one actually doing? Yeah, this was the thing that was reducing the hand by 2 cards. Just go ahead and heal that one back up. I think we're in a pretty good point of safety. Just go ahead and heal this one more time. Get rid of that. That's just giving me more resources. If I get one more resource, I can just throw... I could throw Gandalf at it. Or I could just attack now. 3, 4, 7. Yeah, seems to me... it does have defense. So, it is wise to do some other stuff first. Guess you put that one in defense mode since you can't do anything else, and leave this one in defense mode and just end the turn. And there's nobody on the field, so he's not, the tower's not going to regain any health. Yeah. And again, I guess you probably just want to attack. Even if you are only going to do 1 attack damage. Although, if I was to do this, and then to do this, let's go ahead and hit this character. And then to do this. And then to activate this. Now I can just attack with that one. Access the tower to find the second. What? I was not expecting that. So there's multiple parts of the tower. Well, I think we're in such a good position it's not going to matter anyways, but that is irritating. I thought we had one do that. Put that one in defense mode. Kill that. Heal that guy back up. I guess the move here is probably to replace things that don't have big attack. Impending doom. Well, whatever that was, died quickly. Impending doom, pursuit 3 is here, and access to the tower is here. But looked like there was another card that summoned and then immediately died. So we could destroy that, or we could access the tower. And I think accessing the tower a third time is the move. Seems to me like we are dropping the tower on ourselves, not the enemies. Buried in stone. And see, we won with Gandalf, and I know there's an achievement for winning with Gandalf multiple times. Weirdly, that's not the final encounter.
And
that was the only way you could win.
All about scattered and broken hillmen looking around in shock. You've all fallen into a great underground chamber that lay beneath old Fornos, revealed only by the crushing weight of the tower you felled. To your relief, you find that your companions yet live, though each is caked in dust. Many hillmen also survived, and begin to rise and gather. The dark voice of the lady calls out from within the cloud of dust.
Find the device and destroy the intruders. We will not be denied.
Your work is not yet done. If the device yet endures, it must be destroyed, and the threat to the free people ended.
I assume this is Brever. And yeah, this is our final encounter. Grant +3 health to each unique character. We could probably benefit from that. Locate the device amid the wreckage. In summon one rather, device deals 1 damage to every unit, ignoring block. So the move here is almost certainly to find the device and just hope that it's one of these, like the one in the middle. Alright. Grant Surge to every character. We've lost our character, by the way, too.
I am a servant of the secret fire.
So we no longer are protecting Brever, or needing to protect Brever. Okay. Middle one. Now somebody has guard. We found the device. Destroyed the device now. And summon one of these guys. I guess heal this one up. And deal 1 damage to every unit. Okay. 3 health to each unique character if we did this. Is this a unique character? No, but this is. And this is, even though that would go away. So, I think it is worth doing this turn. And then it's probably worth putting this in defense mode. And then we'll attack with this. Nope. Really can't because everything's in guard. So we could try and attack that way, but I'm just going to put this in defense mode. Hopefully that doesn't kill too many people. Should have killed only one, and then we lost Gandalf. And then I guess if I throw this, then Sauron loses a resource. Then I guess the move would be to do this. Do we have enough to win one turn? No. So let's get rid of this first. Which I guess that lets me put another character on the field. Then, yeah, definitely hit that with that. Then I was going to kill this anyways. So it's probably fine to kill that too. He has no resources. We can whittle him down and destroy the device. We're going to be one short, however. So we might as well just put this in defense mode for next turn. And there's not anything else special we really need to do. We're obviously just going to win. I could play another artifact if I wanted to, but I think it's way wiser to just go ahead and win. Pause now if you want to read that. Quest is complete.
Furious, Aruethel raged at the loss of her device, and with it her plan to restore her master power. Where had the intruders come from, and how had they so rapidly ancient Amazon's pieces resolve. Without her firm command, the hillmen would no doubt the ancient grudges begin to fight amongst themselves and back into these. As for herself, Aruethel knew she waited enough. She and her master would find another way to return to Anmar. All else could wait. Even revenge, as her survival must come first. She would outlive them all, and that revenge was enough. She fled from chain, howled as the dark stones as she went. She would hide in the shadows, make her way through the city until she steal away south in the small world once more.
So she just runs away, it seems. It almost feels like Aruethel here should just be like the shadow version, the evil clone of Brevard. And that would almost make sense in the Middle-earth mythos, as if for every single good guy in the world there is a bad guy equal that is born, and then they perhaps live different lives and have different outcomes, but very often you see the evil of just personifying the evil in people's hearts, personifying as monsters themselves. Otherwise you just have these very generic descriptions of everybody being these shadow creatures, which is interesting enough for one character, but very, very repetitive when it's 2 or 3 characters that all seem to be enshrouded in shadow. I almost wonder if the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit books in part aren't veiled commentary on people that Tolkien knew in his own personal life, much in the same way that the Dante's Divine Comedy, with Dante's Inferno being the best known book there, were blatant commentaries on people that Dante either interacted with in his lifetime or people that he just in general did not like. So we got 1,000 fellowship points and we unlocked 2 copies of one more card. We completed the quest with every hero in play. We did not complete the quest without allowing Sauron to fill his row, which that would be fairly difficult. It would mean you would just have to always have less than 6 or 7, however many enemies Sauron can have on his side. It doesn't seem like it's really 7, it seems like it's 8 or 9. Defeat at least 2 of the tower's weak points in the same round. We did that. Use only unique characters to defeat 15 Rudar, and destroy the device before it defeats a character. We did not accomplish that. So overall we get 400 fellowship points. We are past the 50,000 points, which is to really just say we're 150 to 250,000 fellowship points short of unlocking everything. And we get the same old 1,500 fellowship points, 500 for each new character. I will say, though, it's worth applauding that Road's End was in no way anywhere as difficult as the 4th quest in this Tower of the Necromancer. That nearly caused me to just give up completely. So we are now in a good position where we have only one more quest on this campaign, and then that leaves us only with a little bit more to do in 2 encounters, which we might be able to do that in 1 episode. And I'd like to do 1 quick play just to see, but I may not even actually play all the way through a quick play. So originally, as far as the Witch King's Grass campaign, we had a burglary detective story, then we had a murder mystery, then we had a ghost story, and now we've had a what would have to be a proper adventure story. So I assume this 5th quest will also just be an adventure story. Unless they go horror or tragedy or something like that. But I would just assume we're back to fantasy adventure for the last 2 sections. And more, I just feel like each of these campaigns are totally made up stories that don't really happen in either the Hobbit or Lord of the Rings books. It's also important for me to point out, I think, that I've mentioned a few other fantasy books, Harry Potter, for example, but there's a lot being pointed out there as far as other series that I have not mentioned, because I have even less knowledge around those stories and those series. The Wheel of Time series, for instance, is something I know about, but I couldn't actually tell you anything about it. Or the Dresden Files, which, yeah, I could only really tell you about the TV sci-fi series that was short run based on those books. Dresden Files being a lot more recent than Wheel of Time. As a video gamer, in general, I obviously didn't spend the majority of my free time reading books. And I will say video games in particular have been really, really bad about adapting other forms of media. They don't want to pay a license, and I imagine most authors want way more money than their books are worth. Although notably, The Witcher series of books is the series that leads to one of the best video games ever made in Witcher 3. Although Witcher 1 and Witcher 2, made by completely different companies, are closer to the narrative in the books and not as well polished as games. So Witcher 3 establishes itself being loosely based on the books and becomes a good game that way. Which, arguably, that's what Lord of the Rings is trying to do here too, is that each campaign is loosely based on the books, it seems, or generally, as somebody who admittedly hasn't read a lot of books, I feel like a lot of them are actually fairly disappointing, and that there is just a interaction that happens when you have to read along the book with the books, that you become invested because of that. Whereas if you weren't putting in that time and energy to read the book, you would probably think it's not as good as your nostalgic mind might have you feel. Alright, so I was just showing off what we've unlocked so far. Pretty much, I wouldn't be surprised if there is only 10 or 20 more Sauron cards to potentially unlock and show, unless there are cards that only show up in random skirmishes, which I would never figure that out if that was the case. But yeah, once we do this 5th quest, we pretty much should have seen everything. It is totally possible, though, that I missed an area or skipped a section. There definitely were 2 or 3 places where you could have gone to one area or the other, so maybe there would have been a new enemy at that other area. And come to think of it, the quest where you can fight one of 4 different killers, potential killers, that almost certainly unlocks a new Sauron card each time. So you won't unlock all the cards until you've defeated that campaign 4 different times, fighting each of those 4 different characters, I bet. Well, the good news there, though, is I'm not anywhere close to getting all the achievements done, so I'm not going to try to unlock all the cards, or really try and engage with this game at all once we're finally done. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's some links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.